Welcome to Healthy Vibrations once again, a stage which brings together changemakers, trailblazers who are here to impact a wider audience. We have Jenny Calcoen with us, who's the founder of Inner Earthquake and is passionate about empowering her audiences and clients with a highly effective method so they can break through the pain of pivotal life events, change habitual behavior, and which is no longer serving them, and live in alignment with their deepest values. And the core of Inner Earthquake method she developed is to provide the knowledge and the practical tools that women can thrive no matter what happens in life. She's a very important guest with us today, and the reason being that, as you all know, I'm a strong believer of the fact that parents need to do their inner work so that they can come from a place of empathy and emotional intelligence and be present for their children. And Inner Earthquake is all about doing your inner work. With that, let's welcome Jenny. Welcome, Jenny. How are you doing today?
I'm well, and thank you for having me today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for taking out the time for our audience and being here with us.
Mhm.
So tell us, what is Inner Earthquake?
Well, the way I define an inner earthquake is the effect that is caused by experiencing major life changing events. So it could be a divorce, it could be the loss of a job, the loss of a friendship. So really any situation in which our sense of identity is affected, and it's when your world is turned upside down, and there was a way you experienced life before the event, and then there's a way you experience life since the event.
Oh, that's so beautifully articulated. And what made you start Inner Earthquake? And how long have you been doing it?
Yeah, well, there's several responses, right? In a way, I've been doing this my whole life, but I really became very interested in this work when, in the space of 1 year, I went through a cancer diagnosis. I got a divorce. I changed countries. I changed jobs, and I started dating the man who has now become my husband 21 years ago. So that was one of those pivotal, life changing moments for me that caused me to think about, well, who am I? Where am I going? What am I doing? And that was the start of it all.
Wow, I know. When life hits you is when you come to a pivotal point and decide to do
Yeah,
something
yeah,
about it. But at the same time, it gave you the man of your life.
that's right.
So it gave you the love of your life. So,
That's right.
like they say, everything happens for a reason and everything
Absolutely.
happens for the good. At that point in time, we don't realize it's happening for the good. But of
Yeah,
course,
yeah,
something good comes out of it.
that's right.
Lovely. So this is your journey. And what was the changing point in your life when you felt, okay, now I've gone through this myself. I want to heal other people, or I want to go and help other people who've been going
Yeah.
through this. What was that journey like? Your
Yeah,
decision
so
journey?
I see it as a lifelong journey, really. And so it's been a journey of working with coaches, with therapy modalities, with mentors. And it was about 16 years ago that I got interested in coaching and coaching women specifically. Um, and then I moved from Europe to Southern California 8 years ago. And that's when I started to do this full time and work with women. So, generally, the women that I work with are in midlife. Because according to research performed by the organization called Noon in the UK, shows that on average, by the time we reach midlife, women have experienced about five major life events. And what we usually do is what we're taught. We're taught to power through and white knuckle it and just grin and bear it. And of course, that takes a huge toll on us physically, emotionally, mentally. And that was really the catalyst for me to start honing in on working with women who were in that space after an inner earthquake happens, and they're looking around and thinking, I don't even know who I am. I don't know what to do, and I don't know where I'm going. So,
Beautiful. So tell me, the research that you talked about in the UK, the Noon, which says five major life events, does it tell you specifically what kind of life events, or it just says on an average they would have had these life events, the death,
Yeah,
the birth?
yeah. So the type of life-changing events can be like loss of a loved one, anxiety, depression, menopause, also very
Yes,
interestingly.
yes,
And I also want to point out that it on average is five, which means that there's probably people in your audience right now saying, I've had more than five, in my life. And yeah, that's what their
yeah,
research shows.
yeah. If I think of it, yeah, you're right. It should be close to five, or maybe
Yeah,
a little more here and there, but close to five.
yeah.
Very interesting. So is it safe to say that the target audience is only women?
Yes, yes.
Only women. So if a woman you have a woman client and she comes to you and she says, "Look, I need my husband to go through coaching with you because I think this is going to be super impactful and he's going to learn with from the inner earthquake." What do you say?
Well, I have very, very good people that I can refer husbands to. And this is different to relationship coaching. So I wouldn't coach people on their relationship necessarily. So I would always say, especially when you're working with a coach, I think it's very, very important that you find someone that you gel with, that you feel you can
Absolutely.
trust, that you feel
Absolutely.
you can work with. So I have amazing men, colleagues that I can refer men to.
Beautiful. That is so beautiful. Well said. So, all the women listening to this, all the mothers, all of my audiences who are listening to this, if you're going through a midlife crisis or if you just want to go from good to great, you know who to reach out to. Jenny Calcoen is your answer. And we'll mention her coordinates in the podcast later when we upload it. But just to keep that in mind, if you're going through
Mhm.
any of major life events, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Jenny, so how you've been through a journey and it's been 30 years since you've been doing this. So, how important do you think it is for people to do their inner work? And what do you really mean by inner work? So, let's divide the question into two. What do you mean by inner work?
Yeah, so again, in my opinion, inner work refers to the process of self reflection, self awareness, personal growth, really, that leads to a deeper understanding of oneself. And it involves essentially exploring our inner landscape of thoughts, feelings, past experiences to identify patterns, limiting beliefs, unresolved issues. Yeah, and it's a continuous process too. Inner work is a lifelong occupation.
Correct. And I always like to put it as it's like you say, it's a lifelong occupation because you're
Yeah,
continuously putting layers and layers of things in your life every day as we move because you're having new experiences, you're having, yeah, you're experiencing things and feelings every day. So
yeah.
yes, wonderful, wonderful. So I so one part of the question was what is inner work, which really is
Mhm.
identifying your triggers, going through your past experiences and a lifelong process. But how important do you think inner work is really for you as a parent?
Hmm.
Because I'm a parenting coach,
Yeah.
and I strongly believe that half the problems that our teens and our young adults face today can be fixed if parents do their inner work.
Yeah. Yeah. So because inner work is a continuous process, right? It leads to a sense of well-being and fulfillment. And it really affects every single area of our lives. So I believe that what we do in the world is based on who we are. So it's kind of our doing is informed by our being. And so that makes it essential that we work on ourselves. And unfortunately, a lot of people live according to what they think the world wants from them or expects of them. So, in other words, they're being informed by the outside world rather than by their inner world and their inner work. And so you can see immediately, if you are not connecting to who you are, if you don't know who you are, where you're going, you're not connecting to yourself. You cannot connect authentically with your child. And so as you have talked about, what parents need to really do, what all of us really need to do, is to move from control to connect. And the only way we can connect is by connecting to ourselves first.
Oh, thank you, Jenny. You just touched my heart by
Yeah.
calling out my TEDx talk, How to Move
Yeah.
from Control to Connection. If everybody hasn't heard it, I urge everybody to go ahead and listen
Yeah.
to it. It's called How to Move from Control to Connection. It's on YouTube. And if you like it, please hit the like button and comment on it.
Mm.
So you said a very important thing, Jenny. It's from doing to being.
From
Very well
being to
said.
doing. Yeah.
From being to doing.
Yeah.
How many of us take the real time to sit down and in silence and feel those emotions?
Mm.
And I think that is directly linked to how we parent a child because
Yeah.
we come from a past triggers, right? So that I think is directly related to doing your inner work so that you don't put your fears and your past triggers and your emotional distress onto your child, and you take your child as a complete blank canvas
Yeah.
and allow them to blossom.
Yeah. And
Do you agree?
importantly, I'm sorry, importantly, in order um, to know that that's what you're doing, you first need to become aware of it. If you're not even
Yes.
aware that you are doing this, that you're imposing your filters, your story on your child, or on anybody around you, then that's the first step. That's why it's very, very important to cultivate that self-awareness.
Correct. I am a yoga and a meditation instructor, and I
Mm,
practice yoga and meditation every day. And I
yeah.
actually use meditation strategies in my coaching too. So self-awareness, as you said, is extremely important. Do you teach any strategies in your coaching which raises self-awareness in women?
Yes, in fact, that's all I do, right? So I work with my clients on their self-awareness, on these building blocks that one needs to start strengthening that muscle. Because really, what self-awareness creates is we cultivate the opportunity to choose how we respond rather than simply reacting from automatic habitual behavior. So what I teach my clients is literally the building blocks. What does your world look like? What are your patterns? What are the things that you see occurring over and over again? And it's usually a good indicator is when, and we all do this, and my clients do this, and I do this sometimes as well, is when we talk about, if only the other person could change, right? That is usually a good
Oh yeah.
indicator that
Oh
we
yeah. The
are.
minute you say yes, that we need the work.
That's right. That's
Absolutely.
right. It's
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
So
like,
well
what is
said.
my responsibility, right? And I can
Yeah.
always do more. I can always do more to grow myself more.
So true. Taking ownership of your own actions. I always say that you can change the output by changing your input. And that's
That's
the way
right.
I put it, right? It's
Yeah,
you can't change the world, but you can change your response to the world.
that's right. And
So,
actually, I would argue that that is how you do change the world, right? It starts with
correct,
ourselves, right? It's
correct,
one person at a
correct,
time, and it's the,
correct.
the ROI, right? In the business world, we talk about ROI as return on investment. I call ROI ripples of impact. So
Oh, very
what I
nice.
do in the world has an impact on the people around me, ultimately my community, my country, and the world, right? So.
Yeah, and another thing, I always when I'm coaching my young adults, I always um, use mindfulness strategies, and I always tell them
Yeah.
when someone is yelling or being upset, You need to empathize with the person because the person is hurting.
Yeah.
Only when you're hurting will you yell,
Yeah.
will you be angry. If you're
Yeah.
not hurting, you won't be angry, right?
Yeah.
So it's how can you change your external circumstances just by raising your own EQ,
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's so beautifully said. I love this conversation. So we said we've noticed how we've discussed how important it is for a parent to do their inner work and
Mm.
what you mean by inner work. How do you think if a parent does not do their inner work, it can impact a child?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's pretty clear that if we are not working on ourselves, if we don't even have the awareness about our actions, if we don't have awareness around who we are because we're simply reacting to what is happening on the outside, we're reacting to events around us. I mean, you can immediately see how that will impact all of our relationships and specifically the relationships with our children. Like, how could it not? If we are not self-aware, how can we possibly connect with our children, right? It's of prime importance. Yeah.
Yeah, how many times do we come back from work and take out our frustration on our kids because we're not
Mm,
self-aware,
mm, yeah.
because
And
we've had
because
a
we're
rough day?
yeah, because we're reacting, right? We're
We're
reacting
reacting.
to hurt people. As it's not for nothing that we have that expression. We're reacting from an old habit, an old wound, and that is definitely not the place to come from when we want to authentically connect with our children.
So I would imagine in your program, one of the key aspects you must be teaching is the impact of self-love,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Self-love,
right? What is it?
self-compassion. Yeah,
Yeah. So having that self-compassion, healing your own wounds, coming from a place of forgiveness, coming from a place of response versus reaction. These are all the things that
yeah,
would will impact a child's growth, and means that you need to do your inner work. So thank
yeah,
you for that. Now, you
yeah.
also mentioned that you have the core of the inner earthquake method that you've developed. Why don't you share what is that method with us?
Yeah, so the method I mean, it's a very simple process. It's not necessarily easy, but it is very simple. And it really, what we work on is really to take yourself into that space of being rather than the space of doing. Very often, when we are experiencing difficulty, we are not experiencing the present moment. In fact, we're probably trying to escape it. So
The
the
present.
first thing is really to become present. And one of the best ways that I know to become present is to become present in our bodies. So that is a very basic first step is presence practices. So I teach different presence practices, and I also teach why it is important, that we understand why we're doing it. So people might argue, well, I can get a mindfulness app, I can listen to an app and meditate. But what are you meditating on is the question. Why are you doing it? It's very performative if you're just sort of sitting down and thinking, I have to quiet my mind, which, spoiler alert, that will never happen.
That will
our,
never happen.
our mind
That
is
will
very
never
busy.
happen.
And so the secret is really to cultivate a different relationship with your thoughts and with your mind. But the reasons of sitting down and meditating are very important, and in fact it is the most natural thing that we can do, is being with ourselves and simply being. And we can have thoughts and we can learn how to deal with those thoughts, but simply being with ourselves is the very most natural thing to do. We don't need to have an app. We don't need to, watch a YouTube video on how to meditate. It's a very natural thing to do, and we can all do it anytime. So that is what I do. I teach presence, and the outcome is that rather than when life-changing events happen, you're being tossed around on the ocean and you don't know what is up and you don't know what is down. It's cultivating that inner resilience, that emotional resilience, so that no matter what happens in life, even very difficult experiences, we can come back to ourselves and not be spun out, in fact, by the thoughts that we believe are real. Most
That
of
is
our
so
thoughts are not
beautifully
real.
said. 90% of our thoughts are not real.
Yeah,
I like to call the definition of fear for me as false evidence that appears real.
yeah, yeah.
It's really your mind creating scenarios. And it's
That's
so strange you say this, that we need an app to be with ourselves. Can you believe that?
right.
I mean, the biggest fear I think people experience is not being with the world, but being alone with
Yeah,
themselves and their
yeah,
own thoughts.
yeah.
And if we can master that art, I think
Mm,
um, we've we've met half our demons in our life. And as I like to say, for meditation, I'm a meditation instructor and I meditate morning and night. And I like to call meditation when people say, I can't clear my mind. Oh, well, meditation is not the absence of thoughts, it's the acknowledgement of thoughts.
mm.
So thoughts
That's
are going to keep coming in, but how is it that you recognize the thoughts and then watch them pass while you
yeah.
continue to breathe and be alone with yourself? Oh my God, I can have this conversation all day, Jenny. I'm so glad we invited you. This is so close to my heart. So I'm
Mm,
sure all our audience, all the women who are listening out there, I think Jenny can superbly help you if you're going through any of these midlife crises, and teach you some being present techniques so that you can come from a place of response versus reaction for your child.
yeah.
So thank you, Jenny, for being with us today. In our closing, may I ask you to give us some words of wisdom for people out there who feel stuck and are not happy with their lives?
Mm. Yeah, I would say with compassion, for each of us, including myself, when we tell ourselves that we are stuck, that's exactly what we're doing. We are telling ourselves a story, right? Nature is ever changing, so it actually takes effort to try not to change and to remain stuck. So most people, when they say I'm stuck, what they're really saying is I'm afraid. I'm afraid of moving forward. I'm afraid of what I don't know. And I would say my tip is embrace change, because it's an opportunity for a new beginning. Yeah, and I would also extend to your audience, if anyone would like some help, to email me at hello@innerearthquake.com, and I can send them a best life quiz, which will be helpful in seeing where you are and where you want to go.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Jenny. I'm sure you're
Mm.
going to get a lot of people who are going to reach out to you, asking you for your support, because I think um, everybody can do with a Jenny in their life.
Thank you.
So embrace change,
Yeah.
come from a place of response, do your inner work to raise healthy youth. Make sure that you're healthy so that your surroundings, your families are all healthy. So continue
Yeah.
to do your inner work, meet your inner earthquakes, and reach out to Jenny. And I will put the details um, in the chat. Thank you and have a wonderful, wonderful day, everyone. Thank you, Jenny, for being with us. Very, very grateful to you. And we do hope we continue the conversation and continue the relationship at some form. Thank
Mm.
you.
Thank you.